There seems to be no end in sight to the Democrats pushing this Russia mess. So as many of you may know, Corey Lewandowski had to go testify at the House yesterday. What a fiasco. Points of order being given all over each other, the clock being stopped. And to be fair, I kind of like what Corey Lewandowski did up to a point. He made the whole thing look like one complete farce and a waste of time. And there were definitely some points, without a doubt, where he was just completely trolling the Democrats to their faces. You know, when they asked him a simple question, had he had, meeting with Donald Trump or something, of course he remembered. But he made them prove where it was in the Mueller report. He made them do it. So, gotta give credit, man. Gotta give credit. It was definitely entertaining. It was very unique. And he played the Democrats at their own game and made them pay for it. So that was entertaining, but at the same time, just listening to some of the stuff that just got spewed out of these people's mouths. It was a prime example of why Congress and the Senate have such low approval ratings. And the fact that a lot of them still kept peddling this Russia crap. Especially Eric Swalwell. He's been doing it. You know what? I think Eric Swalwell is trying to, set himself up for a job at MSNBC whenever he leaves office. That's what it seems like. Obviously, that president thing didn't go too well for him. Oh, and that was very, I was going to say ironic, but no, rather hilarious. Corey Lewandowski got a nice little shot at Eric Swalwell, referring to him as a President Swalwell. Oh, man. That was pretty funny. The president thing didn't go too well for Mr. Swalwell. Obviously, he's already dropped out. And yet he's still peddling this whole Russia BS. Period. He just will not give it up. It's almost like it's embedded into his DNA now or something. And still saying, yeah, I still believe he's a Russian agent during the testimonies. I mean, it's just, it's absolutely going off the rails, ridiculous. I honestly just don't have words for this at this point. This is what the Democrats are wasting their time on. And then you wonder why a lot of people don't have faith in the Democrats. Because this is what they want to spend their time doing. Keep beating the same dead horse. They've called how many witnesses before them? They keep getting the same answer. The Russians tried to interfere in the elections, but they did not collude with the Trump campaign. So you didn't get it out of Bob Mueller. You didn't get it out of James Comey. What makes you think you're going to get it out of Corey Lewandowski? They are just out of their minds digging for anything they possibly can to keep their base happy with some sort of a hope of an impeachment. But at the end of the day, these same little jolly gang of Democrats sitting on Capitol Hill are full of corruption themselves. Period. A lot of those Democrats have taken plenty of corporate money. A lot of those Democrats have supported going into some of these bogus BS wars. And if anyone really believes that at the end of the day, a lot of those Democrats are really that different from President Trump, you're only looking through it of the lens of your own hatred for President Trump. Any sort of a corruption thing you could find on Trump, by him taking money or whatever, you can find very similar things on the majority of those politicians. The only difference is that Trump has actually been in favor of some policies that are fairly good. Now, I'm sure somebody could point out one or two from these swamp politicians who've been sitting up there, growing extra limbs because they've been part of this swamp for so long. It's just absolutely ridiculous. I really have no words for it. I really don't. And it's disgraceful that this is what they're finding the time to do, is to just sit there and keep on with the same old crap all the time. Absolutely crap. Matter of fact, why don't we just take a look at a CNN clip from what happened right at the very beginning of this hearing?
Mr. Lewandowski, we received a letter from the White House just yesterday that they will not let you answer any questions beyond what you told the special counsel and was publicly released. The White House's instruction to you is based on a bogus claim of executive privilege, even though you did not work a single day for the administration, let alone in the executive branch. My colleagues are going to get into the specific events in detail, but I'm especially troubled by the president's attempt to obstruct Congress's investigation and prevent the American people from learning the truth about what he's done, and I want to ask you questions relevant to that issue. Mr. Lewandowski, is it correct that as reported in the Mueller report on June 19, 2017, you met alone in the Oval Office with the president? I said,
is there a book and page number you can reference me to, please? I don't have a copy of the report in front of me.
Volume 2, page 90. But I simply ask you, is it correct that as reported in the Mueller report on June 19th, 2017, you met alone in the Oval Office with the president?
Could you read the exact language of the report, sir? I don't have it available to me.
I don't think I need to do that, and I have limited time. Did you meet alone with the president on that date?
Congressman, I'd like you to refresh my memory by providing a copy of the report so I can follow along.
Hey, you don't have a copy with you?
I don't have a copy of the report, Congressman.
Mr. Chairman, I request that the clock be stopped while this charade is sorted out.
I'm sorry, Congressman, what page was it?
The clock should have been stopped and should remain stopped. Page 90, volume 2.
Okay, and which paragraph, sir?
I don't have it in front of me.
I'd like a reference, sir, so I can follow along on what they're asking.
Do you not have an independent recollection of whether you met with the president on that date?
Congressman, I'm just trying to find in the Mueller report where it states that.
Well, you have it in front of you. I gave you the page number.
Okay, where on page 90 is it, sir?
Mr. Chairman, you gotta start the clock.
No, I don't have to start the clock, but he's filibustering. Bottom of page 90.
Filibustering is a different issue. That's across the hall in the Senate. This is actual questions being done now.
Mr. Chairman, point of parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
That's not...
The gentleman will state his point of parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Chairman, is it appropriate for a witness to refuse to answer a question and instead demand that we reference and point him to the... I'd ask that Mueller report be closed and the witness be directed to answer the question.
Well, the answer is not appropriate, but it's on the bottom 2 lines of that page.
Point of order. When will the clock start, Mr. Chairman?
Once the question's asked, Mr. Chairman, the clock should start.
Right under overview, second line.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman, the witness.
Point of order.
The witness has the time and will
Point of
answer
order is
the question. The witness will answer the
overrides
question.
that. A point of order overrides that, Mr. Chairman, and you know that.
The gentleman will state his point of order.
Point of order is once the question has been asked and referenced properly to the witness to answer the question, the clock should start. It cannot be held while you and your counsel go over notes.
The gentleman is correct. The clock will start. And the witness will answer the question without further delay.
Yes, I see that in the report.
Thank you. During that meeting, did you tell the special counsel that the president, quote, asked you to deliver a message to Sessions, who was then the Attorney General of the United States? Page 91. I asked you a question, sir.
I'm looking for that reference on page 91, Congressman.
Do you not have an independent recollection?
No, I'm looking... Mr. Congressman, I'm trying to adhere to the White House's request. I answer questions that are provided in the Mueller report only, so I'm trying to reference that report directly about your question, Congressman.
Were you a White House employee at that time?
No, Congressman.
And if, did you ever, okay. You did not hold any position in the government whatsoever, did you?
Correct.
Now, sitting behind you are counsel for the White House, correct?
That's my understanding.
You understand those lawyers actually work for the President at the White House?
I believe that's accurate.
Nevertheless, the President's lawyers have told you not to answer any question by this committee other than what has already been disclosed in the special counsel's report. Is that correct?
Congressman, I'd have to read from the letter that the White House provided the committee if that would help clarify. Would you like me to do that, Congressman?
No, I'd like you to answer the question. Have you been directed...
Congressman, I've never spoken to any members of the White House counsel's office other than saying hello about 15 seconds ago.
You were directed by letter.
Congressman, I was provided a letter that I believe this committee was assigned. It says, as explained below, Mr. Lewandowski's conversation with the President and with senior advisors to the President are protected from disclosure by long-settled principles protecting executive branch confidentiality interests, and as a result, the White House is directing Mr. Lewandowski not to provide information about such communications beyond the information provided in the portions of the report.
Take that as a yes. And the basis for their direction is a claim of executive privilege. Is that correct?
I can read it again, Congressman.
The answer is you're not answering the question. We've already established that you were never employed by the White House or the executive branch. That is correct.
I have never been employed by the executive branch.
Sir, did you ask the White House counsels to be here?
Congressman, as I just reiterated, I've never spoken to anyone in the White House counsel's office.
The answer is no. Was it your idea for you not to answer questions based on a claim of executive privilege?
I can reiterate I didn't ask. I've never had a conversation with someone from the White House counsel's office regarding this matter.
So it was your idea not to answer?
I have never had a conversation with someone from the White House counsel's office regarding this matter.
Was it your idea not to answer these questions on the basis of executive privilege, yes or no?
Congressman, I can only go by the letter that was provided. It was not my idea to provide this letter.
Not your idea. Did you ever suggest to the President or anyone else that you thought your communications with him were official White House communications?
Congressman, the White House has directed I not disclose the substance of any discussions with the President or his advisors to protect executive branch confidentiality. And I recognize this is not my privilege, but I am respecting the White House's decision.
Let me ask you some questions about your relationship with the President after he assumed office. How many times has the President asked you to meet him in the White House?
The White House has directed not to disclose the substance of any discussions.
How many times did you meet with the President alone in the White House in 2017?
I don't know the answer to that.
How many times did he direct you to deliver a message to a member of his cabinet?
The White House has directed not to disclose the substance of any discussions with the President.
Did he ever discuss with you any concerns that he may have committed a criminal offense?
The White House has directed not to disclose the substance of any discussions with the President or his advisors to protect executive branch confidentiality. I recognize this is not my privilege.
Mr. Chairman, I make a point of order. Pursuant to Clause 2J, 2A of Rule 111, that the gentleman is out of order. He has exceeded the time limit under the 5-minute rule.
I will enforce the time limit under the 5-minute rule.
I challenge the ruling. I challenge the ruling of the chair.
The ruling of the chair is challenged. All those in favor of overriding the rule of the chair will say aye. Opposed, no? No.
Roll call.
Those have it. Roll call is asked. The clerk will call. Where's the clerk?
We can make this a lot easier. We can. I mean, this
clerk will call the roll.
Absolutely a joke. And that's just the opening. Go out there and look up the rest of the clips if you want to see just how big of a farce it was. Farce from beginning to end. Same old dog and pony show we've been listening to from the same group of idiots. Yeah, it wasn't in this clip, but yeah, Sheila Jackson Lee, I will refer to you all as a bunch of idiots. Which she got so upset about when she thought a Republican referred to them as idiots because he had used the term useful idiots. Oh, she didn't like that a bit. That was against House rules. Well, it's not against my rules. You're all a bunch of idiots. Plain and simple. Period. There's much more productive things you could be doing with your time than continuing to just harp on the same old crap. If you don't like what happened with President Trump, I got news for you. You're a bit late in the game to impeach this guy. You're coming up on the next election. Plain and simple. Next year, there will be another election. If you don't want him around, put a decent candidate up against him that might actually pose him serious threat and has a chance of winning. And I've got news for you. That isn't Joe Biden. That isn't Kamala Harris. Not Pete Buttigieg. Certainly not Beto O'Rourke. And for that matter, I don't think Elizabeth Warren really has much of a chance either. Definitely not Amy Klobuchar either, like Bill Maher thinks. Oh, no. You want someone who's going to pose him a threat, even though I don't agree with Bernie on a lot of things. I have agreements with Bernie and I have disagreements with Bernie. Obviously, I voiced who I would like to see run against Trump would be Tulsi. And I would be listening intently to those debates to see who won my vote at the end of the day. Just because there's a lot of points Tulsi makes that were points that I like that President Trump made. The problem was there was always that sneaking suspicion about President Trump that I don't have with Tulsi as, is he really going to follow through? And while in a way it seems like he's still trying to adhere to some of those campaign promises about the anti-interventionist thing, he stacked his cabinet full of neocons and warhawks. That's kind of the opposite of what you ran on. Just saying. You wanted to drain the swamp. I wouldn't go bring back former creatures of the swamp into my presidential campaign if I'm leading a revolution to get rid of these swamp creatures. I wouldn't go bring back some swamp relics. Not a good idea. Not in my opinion, anyway. But I'm not an elected official. So, do you all out there agree with me? Is it a good thing or a bad thing if you want to drain the swamp to bring back swamp relics? I don't think that's very much of a good thing myself. And I don't think you got to worry about things like that with Tulsi. At the same time, there are still some issues where I'm more on the right than I am on the left. And so, for that reason, I would be really having to listen to see who won my vote in that debate. Bernie seems to just be, a little far out there on some of his proposals. I agree with the concept of the Medicare for all. Okay? When we get into eliminating college debt, eliminating medical debt, while in theory, I think it is a very noble thing. I just really have a hard time understanding and believing that he's really going to be able to generate enough money to pay for that sort of thing without just absolutely driving us into outrageous amounts of debt. And if you're telling me you're going to have to raise my taxes, they've already said I'm going to have my taxes raised for Medicare for all. But it would still be cheaper than regular insurance. And you know what? At the end of the day, I'm going to take their word for it. I know a lot of people would say, oh, you're a fool for doing that. But at the same time, the current system doesn't work for me. And it never has tried to work for people like me. And I don't mean people that don't want to work, because I work to make an honest living. But a lot of these jobs didn't raise wages to match the growth in the economy. I'm one of those people that's been impacted by that. I'll make enough money to pay my bills, but it's just enough. I don't have much left over to go for high health care. And even the health care that my company offers is high health care. Can't afford it. So, but when you get into the whole eliminating thing, hey, I don't want that much of my money gone for all these different things. And I just don't understand how he's going to be able to pay for all that. And that's where it gets out there a little bit. I understand a lot of people like that concept. I understand a lot of people think it sounds great. You have to be practical, though, for some reason. I don't want to come across like all those Republicans out there who say you can't have none of it. There are social programs that you can have, but you're also never going to have a perfect world. You're never going to have a utopia. It's not been done yet, and it's not going to happen. You got to deal with basic facts of the real world here, okay? And certain things like that may just be out of reach. Now, I understand why he wants to do it, and I agree with the reason why. Because as we've discussed on this channel, corrupt pharma, big pharma, has contributed to all these high medical bills that people can't pay for. And schooling systems that make you take classes you don't really need for your degrees and then charge arm and a leg for them, drive you into such student debt, and then you can't pay for that either. You can't afford a license. So I completely understand why. I'm having a hard time coming to terms with how he's going to do that. So when he, for reasons like that and that alone, and the other thing is, and I think Tulsi may be behind the fight for 15 also, but obviously I've expressed, in my opinion, I don't think a blanket minimum wage all the way across the country is the way to go, because there's different costs of living as you go state by state. Some states may be closer to other states, but there's a huge gap between what the cost of living in South Carolina is as opposed to the cost of living in New York. So $15, may not do much in New York. It'll be good here, but it may not do nothing at all for New York. And at the same time, because it would be such good money here, you may end up hurting a lot of people. Now, you couldn't live off $7.25. Absolutely not. You couldn't live off $7.25 an hour. You couldn't do that here. But you may also drive a lot of people out who are paying workers $10, $11, $12 an hour, $9, $10, high school kids, for example, that like to employ a lot of young people. You may hurt them by doing things like that, cause them to have to make layoffs and whatnot. And big corporations can do it, but, we still have lopsided trade deals in place. And if you just keep raising wages on them, if they stay, it just causes everything else to go up in a match. At the same time, they would also just be more likely to possibly outsource where the labor is cheaper and take advantage of that lopsided trade deal for those who haven't already. So there's a lot more things, from what I can see, that are going to have to be changed to make this concept work. And to me, I don't think there should be, if we're going to go with a minimum wage, it should be just low enough that most businesses won't be too impacted by it, honestly, at the end of the day. And as I said, there needs to be some sort of a thing in place that says, instead of a minimum wage, an agreement that says if you pay your workers and you do them well, this is what we give you in return as far as tax breaks and tax credits are concerned. But they really don't want to invest in things like that. That's too complicated. So it's like I said, that's why I'm backing Tulsi. Okay? But nonetheless, her or Bernie would pose a much bigger challenge than most of those other candidates floating around on that debate stage. They're just more of why this is so disgusting, what we just watched. Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Independent Report. If you liked the video, please give us a thumbs up and like the video. Also, if you have any questions or comments that you'd like to ask or topics you'd like us to cover, please drop a comment in the comment box below. And also, please subscribe to the channel. And if you do subscribe, ring that bell so you'll stay up to date when we drop new videos and you'll get notifications of it. And also, please support us on Patreon. Funds are going to be used to grow and improve this channel so we can reach more and more people and spread the message that the mainstream media doesn't want to tell people. We hope you'll tune in next time.